There was once a strong sense of unity among the people of Kumandra, but shortly after the Druun had been banished, all of that seemed to fade away. Kumandra had divided itself into 5 different tribes who were all fighting among one another over the control of the dragon gem. They let the gem create a major discord between the tribes, believing the gem itself held some sort of power that brought prosperity to the tribe that owned it. And all of that fighting ultimately led the various tribes into grave danger after an altercation led to the dragon gem being shattered into multiple pieces, which awakened the Druun. After she watched her father and many of the people she loved turn to stone, Raya set out on a journey to find Sisu, the last dragon, in hopes of restoring the dragon gem. Now, it's common knowledge that the Druun are the main antagonists of the film, if you don't count the humans and their hostility towards one another, that is. And from what we understand, the Druun spread like wildfire, surging across the land, turning most living things that they come in contact with into stone statues. But what's even crazier was that each time someone was turned into stone by the Druun, more Druun seemed to spawn. As Sisu explains, the Druun are created from the greed and malice of humans. That negative energy is like a power source for them, and as far as the people of Kumandra know, the only 2 things that can keep them safe would be the dragon gem or water. Druuns don't go near water. But here's the interesting thing. After watching the movie, it's pretty easy to tell that the Druun are meant to be the main antagonists and by far the biggest threats to humans and dragons, right? But what if I told you that they may have actually been the unsung heroes of the story and the reason that Kumandra could once again become united and prosperous? Looking at some of the clues throughout the movie has helped us see that the Druun were secretly leading the people of Kumandra to the answer the whole time. They just needed to look a bit closer. The first big clue that the Druun give to the people of Kumandra is actually in the way that they unleash their wrath. By that, I specifically mean the poses that they place their victims in. If you saw the movie, then you know that when the Druun affects something with their powers, aka turning them into stone, they don't turn into stone in the exact position that they were frozen in. It's actually much more uniform than that. They actually make all of the statues stand in the same position. Once a Druun makes contact with someone, they seem to wrap themselves around the person, engulfing their bodies in a smoky-looking mist. And as the Druun passes over them, the mist basically pulls and moves the body into position while freezing them solid and turning them to stone. The statue ends up standing straight up with its head very slightly bowed and both of its hands cupped out in front of it, almost as if it's holding an offering of sorts. Now, they don't ever actually mention the position that the statues all end up standing in during the movie, but if you think about it logically and look at the movie as a whole, there's actually a lot of information we can take from them. For instance, we spoke about the hands being cupped in a certain position. Well, obviously that is supposed to indicate the offering of something to someone, and when you think about it, it's really good foreshadowing for what Raya ends up doing to help save Kumandra. It symbolizes the act of giving something important to someone else selflessly. And that's what Raya ends up learning from Sisu and doing during the end of the film when she realized that she needed to learn to put her trust in someone else despite all that has happened to her. Her father, Sisu, and those statues had been telling her all along that she needed to have faith in others even when it seemed like they didn't deserve it. So, in the end, she ended up trusting Namari and handing over the last fragment of the dragon gem, thus saving Kumandra and uniting the people once again. What's really cool is, when you think about it, that's also what the dragons had to do 500 years before Raya ever existed. They had to combine all of their powers into one source, which they ended up entrusting to Sisu, who used it to stop the Druun and save humanity, all while losing her family in the process. But at the end of the day, it looks like the Druun's biggest weakness is the strength of unity and trust among everyone. And what's crazier is it looks like the Druun were telling us that the entire time. I mean, think about it. All of the statues are standing in the exact same way, which in a sense is depicting unity among the people. Also, in the long run, freezing the humans probably ended up saving a lot of them, especially after the attack on the Heart Tribe. There probably would have been a massive war, which would have only led to a lot of death and bloodshed. So when they turned the humans into statues, they kind of stopped all that from happening, preserving the human lives in a stone statue in order to put all of the chaos on hold while Raya figured out how to bring everyone together again. How cool is that? As we know, 500 years before the events that we witness in the movie, Sisu, along with her siblings, all sacrificed themselves to save the world from the Druun. Only unlike her siblings, Sisu wasn't turned to stone, and instead somehow got washed away. After the Druun had been wiped away, the humans began fighting among themselves over possession of the dragon gem and ultimately divided. But somewhere along the way, the legend of one last surviving dragon began to spread around the land. Now, most people took it as just that, a legend. But in reality, this means that someone had to have noticed that among the statues of the dragons, Sisu's was missing, and somehow deduced that her body must have been swept downriver. And whoever it was that made this discovery began to tell people, but much like in real life, when it comes to something that people don't think can be real, they didn't believe them. However, it made a good story, so it was told over and over again. This is most likely how Namari knew about the legend of Sisu and ended up telling it to Raya. Only Raya, unlike almost everyone before her, believed it and thought that it was the only hope to save her people from the Druun and bring back her father. This brings us to a question that a lot of fans find themselves asking. Why did it take so long for someone to go and find Sisu? And the answer goes back to what we were talking about before. For most people, that story of Sisu was just a legend or a bedtime story. In reality, for them, all of the dragons had died and the idea of a living dragon was just a tall tale, especially since before the Druun came back, the humans wouldn't really have a need to look for the last dragon, so at the end of the day, it was probably easier for them to just say that it was a story. All of the dragons were gone. However, when the Druun ended up coming back and threatening all of Kumandra again, Raya, who was a major dragon enthusiast, took it upon herself to find out if the story was true. This led her on a journey to every end of every river in hopes of finding the last dragon. When you think about it, the Druun was literally the only reason that Sisu, or any of the other dragons for that matter, was brought back. In a way, the Druun provided a sort of push or a sense of desperation that ended up forcing the humans to find Sisu and then unite them to bring Kumandra back to the great place it once was. Without the Druun coming back, that never would have happened. The movie ends on a high note, with everyone and everything returning back to its former glory. All of the humans that have been petrified are now back to normal, and all of the dragons, including Sisu, are back as well. Everyone seems happy, and Kumandra seems like it is united once more. This meant that the Druun were no longer a threat and had essentially disappeared, giving us the appearance that they were gone for good. But as we know, it really isn't the case, because they come from human discord, and Druun always have the possibility of returning. In fact, if the humans were to stop trusting one another again and begin fighting, it's likely that the Druun would come back for round 3. Take a look at what Raya said in the movie when she was speaking about the Druun. She says, "They've always been here waiting for a moment of weakness to attack," and that they were essentially the opposite of the dragons. So if the dragons are around whenever there is peace among the tribes, and everyone in Kumandra is living in harmony, it only makes sense that when the people are attacking one another, the Druun are around. In reality, they are never really gone. They just go dormant until the time is right. What's really cool about this is it kind of implies that the Druun are almost like a force that is set in the world to balance things. When things start to get too bad, the Druun step in and give people an incentive to work together and to help each other. This time it took 500 years for anyone to even go out and look for a way to bring peace among the people of Kumandra, and honestly, that's not even why Raya necessarily was looking for Sisu. She just wanted to bring her father back and stop the Druun. Unity wasn't really on her mind until the end of the film, which was exactly when they were finally able to take the Druun down. So now that the dragons are back and living among the people, they are almost like a living symbol of unity among the people, and hopefully, that unity will be long-lasting. And with the dragons there to remind them what happens when they turn against each other, hopefully, the people will remain at peace for a long time, thus keeping the Druun in their dormant state. But at the end of the day, the people of Kumandra would have no idea how important the sense of unity was if it hadn't been for the Druun attacking in the first place. Odds are, if the Druun hadn't attacked, the tribes would still be at war and a lot of people would have been hurt and the dragons would have remained in their petrified forms. Sure, the Druun were the evil force in the movie, but they were also what drove the people of Kumandra back to greatness and the force that helped Raya realize she needed to follow her heart and find Sisu, the last dragon. Sisu may have taught Raya to be more trusting of others, but there's no doubt in our mind that Raya wouldn't have found Sisu if the Druun hadn't forced her hand. So at the end of the day, it can be argued that the Druun were and are a good thing and an important force of nature in Kumandra. But what do you think? Will the tribes of Kumandra become divided again, thus bringing down the wrath of the Druun? Or will the dragon serve as a reminder as to why their unity is important? Be sure to let us know. That's all, Disney fans. Let us know what you'd like to see next in the comments, and like and subscribe for more magically packed videos.